Ton geht. Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, liebe Medienvertreterinnen und Vertreter, erstmal herzlich willkommen und guten Morgen. Ein frohes neues Jahr wünsche ich Ihnen allen. Es ist mir eine große Freude und auch eine Ehre, Sie heute hier als neuer Generaldirektor in der Albertina zu meiner ersten Pressekonferenz begrüßen zu dürfen. Und ich muss gestehen, ich liebe diese Momente des Neuanfangs. Ich sehe so viele mir schon bekannte Gesichter, auch einige neue. Ich sehe internationale Presse. Ich bin also ganz voller Tatendrang, Ihnen heute ein bisschen vorzustellen, was wir nicht nur heuer, sondern für die nächsten Jahre hier in der Albertina planen und was auch die Grundlinien meiner Strategie und Vision für das Haus, für die Albertina hier in Wien sind. Für mich persönlich war die Albertina immer ein Haus, was sich durch eine große Lebendigkeit ausgezeichnet hat, wo vielseitige, vielschichtige Kunsterlebnisse möglich waren. Und daher ist es eine ganz große Freude, hier die Chance zu bekommen, eine neue Albertina quasi zu gestalten, die Zukunft dieses traditionsreichen Hauses mit dem Team zusammen entwickeln zu dürfen. Und mein Ziel ist es natürlich, hier auch neue Akzente zu setzen, mit neuer Kraft und visionär auch die Albertina in die Zukunft zu führen, die Strahlkraft eines der bekanntesten Kunstmuseen der Welt noch zu steigern und eben die Entwicklung zu einer bedeutenden Institution für die Zukunft zu setzen. Wir alle haben die letzten Jahre verfolgt, wir kennen aber auch die Albertina aus der Geschichte. Das ist sozusagen die Geschichte in Kürze von dem Grafikkabinett über ein viel besuchtes und sehr stark frequentiertes Ausstellungshaus. Und heute möchten wir einen Schritt weiter gehen zur Albertina als modernen Museum. Was das heißt, das möchte ich Ihnen in den kommenden 30 Minuten etwa vorstellen und einige Grundzüge meiner Überlegung dazu kundtun. Es soll vor allem darum gehen, dass wir die Albertina durch innovative Ansätze gemeinsam neu denken, aber auch neu erleben wollen.
And to experience it in a new way.
Sie werden sicherlich mit mir gerne auf die Reise gehen und
sure
neue Entdeckungen machen. Es ist ja immer der Zauber des Anfangs, dass man ein Haus, eine Sammlung neu entdeckt. Und ich glaube, das gilt genauso für das Team mit mir zusammen, wie eben auch für Sie, für unser Publikum. Denn wir werden in diesem Jahr uns viele Fragen stellen, die wir in der Vorbereitung für die letzten 1,5 Jahre hatten.
That we have prepared in the last 1.5 years. We try to reread the collection, if you like, and focus on something that we have not seen so much in recent years with the focus on the exhibition program. But in a modern museum, there are many other areas that are at least as important and at least as interesting.
Eigentlich das versöhnen, was ohnehin schon da ist. Wir wollen
we want to increase the radiance of this collection, and we want to focus on the wonderful holdings of this institution and make it very visible in our program.
Ich verstehe mich selber als
I see myself as a museum manager and as a maker of exhibitions. Of course, I've come here to shape things. I like making experiments. I like developing new conceptions. If we look at the vision and strategy, I'm not going to be exhaustive in my list of what I plan for the coming years, but some of the things that are important to me are the 5 bullet points that you see on the slide.
was das Zukunftskonzept natürlich ausmacht,
something that is very important for our future concept is to have a museum of today. We want to see and feel the zeitgeist in our museum. We want to strengthen our international networks, working together with galleries, with collections, with other museums and international artists. And we also want to engage in cooperations in the area of research. We have some excellence clusters in areas that cooperate with international researchers, and that takes me to the third point, namely the issue of cooperations. Cooperations both international, as I've just said, but also cooperations locally. We want to network with the Austrian museumscape, with our colleagues here in Vienna. I'm sure that you have seen my biography. I worked in Vienna for 8 years, so I know many of my colleagues, and also when I worked in Berlin, we had this international networks with a good relationship with Austria, and this is something that we'd like to follow up on. The fourth bullet point is about developing collection-based research here at the Albertina. Always with a view to both the team and the collection. I'm sure it's obvious to you that Albertina has collections of world renown, more than 1 million objects, but we also have various collection areas where we have great experts in photography, for contemporary art, but also Austrian art of the 20th and 21st century. The architectural collection, for instance. So you see, it's a very large scope that we want to work on, and a large scope for exploring the collections here in the house, but also tapping the expertise of our curators, not only when it comes to works of art as such, but also when it comes to restoration, for instance. And this makes it very clear what we have always been and what we will continue to be. We are an international competence center. That is a long-term strategy, but it should become even more clear, because this is not only about history, it's also about the future of research and exploring and accessing our collections. And the fifth point that is very important to me is dialogue with society. You will think, okay, there's a new director now, and of course all museums want a dialogue with society, with the visitors. But it's still important to stress that, because even if everybody does it, it doesn't mean that we cannot put a special focus on it. 1.5 years ago, when it was decided that I would follow Klaus Albert Schröder in this position, I started developing my vision, and it is mainly about conveying my own passion for art to people, sharing it with the audience. We want to address many strata of society, not only art lovers that would come to the museum anyway, whatever we did, but also maybe attracting people who have other interests and other ideas of what is interesting to them when it comes to art collection, art research, and the knowledge store that is Albertina. Like hobby ornithologists, for instance, that may have a special interest in birds. You find, of course, information about that in our collections. But in order to be able to do all that, we have to present our collection in a clearer way. So we are going to develop a strategy that makes more things possible, better searches in our holdings. And if you look at the structure of our collection with the many graphic art and prints that are sensitive to light and cannot always be seen and shown, so they are different from the permanent exhibitions. In the USA, if people are interested to know what Albertina is about, I would like to make it possible for them to really delve into our collection and to present low-threshold access. Those are the long-term plans that we have in order to be able to present a museum without walls in the digital world. That gives you the opportunity via social media, via podcasts, to present our programs. We are also working on an EU research project about AI. We want to make sure that we tap current and topical issues. Of course, these are major plans that cannot be implemented overnight. Now you may say, well, nice, sounds like interesting plans for the future. This is 15th of January, so what are you going to do this year? And of course, I would like to answer this question. Because what makes our museum visible instantly, it's our exhibition program. And I can reassure everybody, also the many lovers of Albertina, we are going to keep up the diversity. We are going to present many exhibitions. In the last 1.5 years, since I was appointed, I talked intensively to everybody here in the house in order to shape the exhibition program. So it actually does carry my handwriting. And when it comes to the program and the putting together various art experiences, that is an area that I'm absolutely passionate about. So we have about 15 projects that we developed. And from those we selected various topics, and 18 exhibitions in a great number of locations are going to be offered. You have received our folder. So even the first look at it will tell you that is diversity. That is a very diverse exhibition program. And I will be pleased, of course, to tell you a little about this program and what we mean when we say developing creativity.
Das vielgefächerte Ausstellungsprogramm wird
This diverse exhibition program meets the expectations that people have for a world-reputed museum for photography, for prints, for paintings, for a many-nuanced experience of art at every of its venues. Exhibitions and art research can tap holdings that go back 600 years, and our exhibitions will straddle very interesting combinations of topics and periods. According to my understanding, a museum, no matter what it presents, needs to be contemporary. We need topicality in everything we do. That is the first bullet point. The museum of today is a museum for people of today with issues of today. And this is what you are going to see in the entire program, no matter whether it's Leonardo and Dürer or something else.
da vielleicht zu sehr ins Detail gehe und jetzt möchte ich nicht quasi chronologisch jedes Ausstellungsprojekt einmal vorstellen, kann ich vielleicht noch mal ein paar Leitlinien erklären, die uns da in der Zusammenstellung eben mitgeholfen haben in der Auswahl. Und ich hatte ja gerade schon gesagt, der Aktualitätsbezug ist ganz wichtig. Wir haben bei jedem Projekt uns im Team gefragt, warum machen wir die Ausstellung jetzt? Warum machen wir sie in der Albertina? Und die Antworten können natürlich sehr unterschiedlich sein, aber eine andere Leitlinie neben dieser zeitgemäßen Befragung der Sammlung war auch immer, was wollen wir denn Neues aus der Sammlung schöpfen? Und wie können wir das Ganze eben noch mehr zu einem Erlebnisparcours auch für die Besucherinnen und Besucher gestalten? Wir haben uns überlegt, dass wir eben diese Ausstellung, die ich gerade genannt habe, eher nicht chronologisch vorstellen, sondern ich möchte Ihnen sagen, was vielleicht neu ist im Gegensatz zum bisherigen Programm. Und eine der wirklich bemerkbaren Dinge ist wahrscheinlich schon gleich, dass wir hier tatsächlich die Ausstellung so gestaltet haben, dass Sie allein 6 weibliche Personalien sehen, also Künstlerinnen von Leiko Ikemura über Francesca Woodman, Jenny Saville, Brigitte Kovans, Lisette Modell, Jitka Hanslova. Und Sie sehen, dass diese Ausstellung, diese Künstlerinnen schon alle Medien bedienen, von der Fotografie über die Malerei oder Installationskunst bis hin auch zur Malerei und Skulptur bei Leiko Ikemura. Und diese Künstlerinnen stehen einfach dafür, dass wir es als selbstverständlich erachten wollen für die Zukunft, dass eben Künstlerinnen auch in Einzelausstellungen hier vertreten sein werden. Ein weiterer Ansatz, der uns immer wieder hier besonders fasziniert hat, war auch der, dass wir aus der Forschung und aus dem Befragen der Sammlung heraus Themen entwickeln. Ein gutes Beispiel ist dazu, und Entschuldigung, wenn ich jetzt ein bisschen hin und her switchen muss, aber Sie sehen, das Programm ist vielfältig und ich will es ja nicht nur chronologisch vorstellen. Ein gutes Beispiel für diesen Ansatz, wie wir aus der Sammlung heraus arbeiten wollen und eben die sammlungsinhärente wissenschaftliche Arbeit in den Vordergrund stellen, ist die Ausstellung, die jetzt als nächstes eröffnet wird. Und das ist True Colors. Und das behandelt ein Thema, wie eben die Farbe in die Fotografie kam. Aber Sie sehen schon an den erstaunlichen Jahreszahlen hier, da handelt es sich nicht etwa um die Farbfotografie, wie ich sie aus meiner Jugend kenne, im Polaroid, sondern es geht tatsächlich um die Fragestellung, wie ist denn die technische Möglichkeit, das, was wir heute selbstverständlich am Handy haben, nämlich ein Abbild der Realität in Farbe zu reproduzieren, entstanden. Und das war ein internes Forschungsprojekt, denn die Albertina beherbergt ja auch die höhere grafische, technische Versuchsanstalt. Jetzt habe ich, glaube ich, da ausgelassen, müsste ich die höhere grafische Versuchsanstalt hieß es und früher technische Versuchsanstalt, glaube ich. Und da haben wir eben den Fotobestand übernommen und befragt, diese Werke sind so sensibel und so farbsensibel und lichtempfindlich, dass wir sie kaum ausleihen können und dass wir bislang keine großen Ausstellungen damit gemacht haben, aber anlässlich einer Präsentation, jetzt ist ein Buch entstanden, was sicherlich auch ein Forschungsdesiderat ist, und wenn Sie selber durch die Ausstellung gehen, werden Sie merken, das ist nicht etwas nur für Expertinnen und Experten, sondern das spricht uns alle an, weil diese Fotografien einfach so
something for experts, but it is interesting to all of us because those photographs are so fascinating to us.
Und denkt dann in
So
den
you see pictures from the
monochromatischen Abzügen, die
1890s,
nebeneinander hängen, fast an Wall oder an
see
Pop Art späterer
those
Zeit.
monochrome
Also das sind
photographs, and they remind you almost of
solche
Warhol.
Ansätze im
So this
forschungsbasierten
is
Arbeiten
what the
und in dem
research
Blick in die
done in
Sammlung. Man
our
könnte an der
institution
Stelle auch
has
schon
inspired.
etwas mit weiterem Blick auf die Zukunft nennen. Und das ist zum Beispiel ein
Another
Forschungsprojekt, was
thing is
2025
a research
an den
project
Start geht.
that will
Ein
start
internationales
in
Forschungsnetzwerk
2025,
wird also die
namely
materialtechnische
an international
Untersuchung
research
unseres
network is
einzigartigen
going
Bestands
to
an Dürer-Zeichnungen.
explore
Über
our
140
Dürer
Originale haben wir damit
drawings. We
den
have more than
weltgrößten Bestand
140
und die
originals,
werden
the world's
materialtechnisch
largest holdings, and they are
mit Weimar,
going to
mit
be
Berlin
examined
zusammen
in terms of their
untersucht
material
und
together with
hier mit
researchers in
unserer
Weimar
eigenen
and Berlin.
Kompetenz im Haus, dem weltweit führenden Forscher zu dem Thema, mit Christoph Metzger, mit unserer Leitung der Restaurierung, der Frau Glück, wird das eben untersucht, um dann einen Bestandskatalog zu haben, der 2028 erscheinen wird, also im Gedenkjahr Albrecht Dürers, wo wir auch eine große Ausstellung vorhaben. Aber lassen wir uns nochmal zurückkommen zum Ausstellungsprogramm. Sie werden ja in der Vergangenheit schon die Albertina als Haus mit vielen Ausstellungen kennengelernt haben. Wir haben aber in diesem Jahr vor allem uns auch fokussiert auf etwas, was ich vielleicht aus Berlin mitbringen kann und was eine gewisse Neuerung darstellt, denn wir setzen nicht nur auf monografische Ausstellungen, sondern eben auch auf Ausstellungen mit verschiedenen Künstlern und vor allem zu bestimmten Themen. Eine der Fragen in der Erstellung der Ausstellung war auch immer, was ist eigentlich die These hinter einer Ausstellung? Und damit wollen wir den Besucherinnen und Besuchern bestimmte Fragestellungen einmal näher bringen, das Ganze aber natürlich wie immer mit der besten Kunst und mit den besten Kunstwerken, so dass sie sicherlich ein Kunsterlebnis auf unterschiedlichster Ebene haben werden, nämlich sowohl als jemand, der schon mit einer gewissen Vorkenntnis kommt, werden Sie sich vertiefen können. Sie werden aber auch natürlich abgeholt, wenn Sie sich erstmals mit Leonardo oder Dürer und den Meisterzeichnungen auf farbigem Grund auseinandersetzen. Das ist eine Ausstellung, die ich jetzt schon mal hier in den Vordergrund stellen müsste, weil das unsere Hauptausstellung für das erste Halbjahr ist. Sie können unschwer erkennen, das ist eine Altmeisterausstellung. Leonardo und Dürer stehen dabei pars pro toto für etwas Größeres, nämlich für die Befragung eines spezifischen technischen Umstands, fast so wie bei der Farbfotografie, könnte man sich ja auch bei den grafischen Künsten, die wir im Schwarz-Weiß in der Zeichnung denken, fragen, wie ist es dort mit der Farbe? Und das haben schon Leonardo und Dürer gemacht, indem sie nämlich farbig grundiertes Papier verwendet haben. Dazu gab es schon ein Forschungsvorhaben, wo die Albertina seit langem Teil war, wo es um die oberrheinischen Renaissance-Zeichnungen ging, mit Basel, mit Berlin zusammen. Das ist dort eingeflossen. Wir haben aber auch gesagt, wir wollen die Entwicklung und die Entstehung in Italien mit dazu nehmen und wir befragen verschiedene Sammlungsbereiche, spannen daher hier auch intern kuratorische Teams zusammen, was wir vorher sonst noch nicht so viel gemacht haben, um eine Befragung zu ermöglichen, die ein Thema nördlich und südlich der Alpen darstellt. Neben Leonardo werden selbstverständlich auch Größen wie Raphael oder andere Renaissance-Zeichner und Maler vorkommen und neben Dürer genauso andere nordische Meister wie etwa Baldung Grien. Und ich glaube, das wird eine Ausstellung, die nicht nur auf die Schätze rekurriert, die wir hier in der Sammlung so vielfältig vorhanden haben, sondern auch illustriert, wie wir im internationalen Zusammenarbeiten unsere Ausstellung hier noch wertvoller für unser Publikum machen können. Denn ich war ja 23 im Sommer berufen, die erste Dienstreise ging dann tatsächlich nach Windsor Castle, um einmal hier einzusteigen und die Leihgaben mit den Kuratoren zusammen zu Leonardo zu sichern, dann nach Paris, Louvre, um mit den Kolleginnen und Kollegen zu sprechen, denn meistens ist es so, dass wir einen sehr langen Vorlauf haben, wenn es um alte Meister geht. Mit zeitgenössischen Künstlerinnen und Künstlern ist man schneller im Gespräch und kommt natürlich dann auch schneller zu einem Ergebnis. Aber so war es an der Stelle, dass wir tatsächlich diese internationalen Verbindungen, die Forschung im Vorbereich der Ausstellung schon mit einbringen konnten. Und Sie werden eine fulminante Show sehen, die an nichts mangeln lässt, also Leihgaben von weltweiten Leihgebern. Und das ist natürlich kein Ausschluss mit der gleichzeitigen Befragung der Sammlung. Also das sind immer zwei Seiten einer Medaille, die wir hier natürlich mit anspielen. Ich bin jetzt selber mal gespannt, wie Sie, was als nächste Folie kommt, denn so genau kenne ich hier die Reihenfolge
I'm not sure what the next slide is going to be.
In dem Bereich der Themenausstellung und da kann ich Ihnen einmal sagen,
still a thematic exhibition.
Dann so einen kleinen Blick in die Sammlung geben.
We are going to look at our holdings with this exhibition, which is called Unterwegs or On the Move, Artists on the Go. I have a certain expertise when it comes to the late 18th to the early 20th century, and this is exactly the period that this exhibition harnesses. And it shows you what artists saw and drew or painted on their travels, what they brought home from their grand tour and their big voyages of discovery. And it was very exciting for me to look into the collections and to select individual works through this lens. Drawings by Goethe, for instance, that he did during his travels will be shown in the exhibition.
Ebenso ist die Wiener Bohème
The Viennese Bohème is also an interesting exhibition film because some never seen before artwork is going to be shown. It will also be accompanied by a publication, the Hagen Society. So please beware, I'm not talking about the Hagen Bund, but about the Hagen Society, which was the precursor of the Hagen Bund and also of the Sezession. So many of the artists that met at an inn called Hagen were part of this Viennese Bohème, and at the end of the 19th century they met in a convivial atmosphere, made drawings on certain topics. They then chose the winner, who and the project that you can see here, Gothic Modern, is something like a sequel in the same spirit, a new exploration of the modernism that we all think we know. We always think modernism means breaking with the past, but no, it's not so. Look at works from the early 20th century, look at Böcklin, look at Max Beckmann, Käthe Kollwitz, Munch, Axel Gallengalea, or Helen Serfbeck, and you will discover that beyond this break with tradition, there are references made back to selected areas of history such as Africa or Oceania.
in der Kunst gesehen, die man wiederentdecken wollte. Und diese Ausstellung, die ich als Kooperation seit langen Jahren verfolge, so lange Jahren heißt wirklich seit 2018, weil der Erstkontakt und die jetzt gerade in Helsinki schon läuft und weitergeht an die Kooperationspartner in Oslo und dann nach Wien in modifizierter Form kommen wird. Da freue ich mich schon sehr drauf, denn das hat mich kuratorisch immer sehr interessiert, da einen neuen Blick drauf zu werfen und erstmals etwas zu machen, was man eigentlich besser als in der Albertina fast nirgendwo machen kann. Nämlich, wir stellen das nicht nur als These auf, sondern wir haben eben den visuellen Beweis. Wir zeigen nicht nur Max Beckmann, Käthe Kollwitz auch aus internationalen Leihgaben wie aus den eigenen Sammlungen, sondern wir zeigen dazu auch tatsächlich die Kunst, auf die man sich bezogen hat. Das heißt eben die Skulptur des Mittelalters, die frühe Renaissance, Zeichnungen, Grafik eines Dürer, eines Waldung Grünwald, Green,
and that in cooperation with our partners here in Vienna, for instance with loans from the Art History Museum, and that I think is going to be a big highlight for the second half of this year. We also must not forget that apart from this building, Albertina Modern always presents very innovative exhibitions. So maybe you have discovered that already in our program. Many artists will get their first show in Vienna, premieres, in a certain sense. For instance, Kors, a very popular artist, is in the context of this group exhibition because it's not only a solo show, but we put him in juxtaposition with other examples from art and comics. Looking at how Kors develops that theme, Angela Steve is the curator, and we also used external curators, just like with Gothic Modern, where we cooperated with museums in other countries. It is important to me, and you will notice that this is going to be a long-term basis for our cooperation. We want to have long-term cooperations that will be useful for a very long time, where, for instance, a curator from Oslo will take a look at the holdings of Albertina and then maybe develop different ideas from our experts. Sometimes it's the external look that gives you new ideas and inspires you, thereby resulting in innovative and novel projects, creating new possibilities, cooperating with other institutions, learning how they work. The Nordic countries are very progressive when it comes to museology, and if you see how they approach the visitors and how they try to create a very convivial atmosphere in a museum, you can learn a lot.
Bei den Schöpfen kann man fast gleich weitergehen.
Another very interesting project, almost an experiment if you like, as I said, and it's not only me as the new one, but the entire team was absolutely enthusiastic about developing new ideas, and this is one of the results that we discovered. So that is something that is also going to be, I hope, intriguing for the visitors. The fascination of paper. This includes not only the historical collection, but also contemporary artists' stances. We didn't restrict ourselves to certain periods, but we looked at everything, and all the departments were involved. And we also looked at the architectural collection, and we chose works that surprised us, but we sometimes wondered, why are they in the collection? And that was so exciting that we thought, let's put this into an exhibition. And in this exhibition, we want to make sure that our visitors follow a journey through the exhibition halls, maybe using a magnifier to look at the graphical works of earlier centuries, but also looking at big installations where you have to stand on a pedestal and look down in order to see all of it, or also the maps that we have in our exhibition. And I think that this will make visible the great dimensions that Albertina houses, and we're really looking forward to make new discoveries of this kind together with our visitors.
Schaue ich dann doch noch mal zurück, Jetzt muss ich mich mal ganz kurz orientieren. Jetzt habe ich die ganze Zeit hier gedacht, ich brauche gar keinen.
I lost my place in the presentation.
Wer mir fehlt und den Sie aber auf Ihrem Folder finden, ist Damien Hirst.
So someone you will find in the folder is Damien Hirst.
Ah ja. Ist jetzt gerade nicht auf der
Seem to be unable to find the slide right now.
Darstellung sichtbar, aber Sie haben es hier im Programm.
But you will find it in our folder.
Wir werden sicherlich in dem Programm heuer sehr viel betonen, dass wir auch die Künstlerinnen und Selbstverständlichkeit hier zeigen. Das heißt natürlich nicht, dass wir nicht auch große Stars wie Damien Hirst einladen mit
big stars like Damien Hirst, for instance, to be shown in Albertina Modern. I met him in London, and I told him, he said, well, I want to show new works. Of course, we want to show new works as well. Jenny Saville, for instance, will be shown for the first time in Vienna, and she will show new works, not only retrospective. But then we saw that the drawings of Damien Hirst have never been exhibited before. Those who know him well will say, well, okay, he's not an academic draftsman. And when I talked to him, he explained to me that his works are created on the basis of a pencil drawing. Every of his works, famous works such as dot paintings or the Shark Tank, it's all based on scribbles and pencil drawings, and they give us insights in this process of the development of his works. I have to admit I didn't know him before, so it was very fascinating to meet him and to exchange some information. And he said, well, you come from Berlin, that's very nice. And he even spoke some rudimentary German. He was in Berlin for a long time, and he told me that his exhibition in Berlin was in 1993. That was when I took my A-levels. So I didn't go to exhibitions in Berlin then. And he said I had constructed a drawing machine. And he told me, well, it's actually quite a simple machine, an apparatus, but he created great works of art with that. And I said, well, we do need this machine. I want to show this apparatus. And he immediately said, well, everyone can use that, can operate it. Even the visitors? Yes, even the visitors. So in our exhibitions, the visitors can participate. It's going to be a hands-on program. And that will probably tap also new audiences, because there are many people who are creative themselves, and they will find a rich area for experiments in this area. So Hurst, with this world premiere on his drawings, Jitka Hanslova, the photographer, will also be shown for the first time in Vienna. We have Lisette Model, a photographic icon who is not enough known in Vienna, actually. Jan Kors, Laiko Ikemura. Laiko Ikemura is an artist with Japanese and Swiss roots who lives in Berlin, who I've known for years. And I had many ideas for projects with her, and now we can implement one of these projects. So this shows you that we are going to present artist stances that are very new. She is now more popular, has become more popular in recent years, but it took a long time for her to become popular, and I'm very much looking forward to showing her here in Vienna. And another artist whose slide I unfortunately can't find right now, one of the first exhibitions this year, will include Matthew Wong, will present Matthew Wong, an artist who died young. And we show him in a surprising juxtaposition with Van Gogh. Van Gogh was his big idol. It's not only about looking at his models, but also about the results of that interaction. And it was done in cooperation with the Kunsthaus Zürich and the museum in Amsterdam. So again, something that gives us a new perspective on an artist. I think I've really said all of the things that I planned to say for now regarding the program. In conclusion, of course, I would like to give you the opportunity to ask questions. And I'd like to conclude with one thematic focus area for Kloster Neuburg. I'm sure you will wonder what stays the same, what will change. You see, something that stays the same is the great diversity of this institution. In Albertina Modern, we have very well-known and well-frequented new venue. Last year, then, there is now also Kloster Neuburg. So we want to sharpen the profile of the Kloster Neuburg venue, and it was a great joy for me to go there together and talk together with the curators and the entire team to find out what are these site specificities. If you know the building, if you know the architecture, you will know that these very generous exhibition halls actually invite sculptures to be presented. And therefore, Die Sculptura is going to be the thematic, overarching topic. Installations and sculptures. We have received a donation from Andreas Luminski. And that is going to enrich our holdings very much. The sculpture shown there will come from our holdings, and Klosterneuburg is going to be an Art Depot plus exhibition venue. And since the exhibitions do not follow one upon the other as quickly as here, we are going to also provide an accompanying program. It will start in April, and we will try to present more family programs there, exclusive and inclusive topics. We are going to try out certain aspects there that might have a bearing on what we do here and in Albertina Modern. And our education team is very much looking forward into these tests. I am sure that the program is going to be so attractive that it will attract many visitors, old and new. So I can only invite you to go there. So much for the annual program for 2025. So I have presented a few of the grand lines for the future vision for the museum. And I hope that I have been able to show you what of that has been translated into this year's program. It's an ambitious program. I have come to shape new themes and topics, and the team is very willing to work with me. So for now, thank you very much for your attention. Now I'd like to open the floor for your questions. You mentioned the team and the curators a lot. So I wanted to ask, why are they not listed in the exhibition programs? Wouldn't that be interesting? Well, when it comes to this folder, we just wanted to provide an overview. So you can see there is not a lot of space left. But then, when we have longer texts for the individual exhibitions, you will see the names of the curators and the teams. This is more or less a question of quickly visualizing the exhibition program in a nutshell. You also mentioned architecture. When will architecture be reflected in the program? You mean the architectural collections? The architectural collection, well, for instance, in the exhibition, The Fascination of Paper, there it will be included. And there are also some projects in the pipeline. I've just told you that the process has been going on for 1.5 years, but it's by no means completed, because not everything can be implemented immediately. So this year is not going to show you everything, but you will in the future also present architecture. But all topics that are somehow making reference to our collections are possible. You said you want a museum without walls, digitalization, visualization. Do you need an additional budget for that? Or is that included in your current budget? Well, in the future, there will be additional funds required, public funds, because right now we have a budget that was adopted for next year. So for this year, we are going to collect ideas and evaluate them. So it's about strategic concentration and concerted actions in order to be able to make things that we do have visible and put them online, such as areas such as the catalogues raisonnés, for instance, a catalogue raisonné on Pacosta. There will be an online catalogue on Klimt drawings. So there's many areas. And the one thing is to bundle all these efforts and then think into the future what can be a broader and larger digital strategy. Of course, for that we will need additional funds in order to do in-depth drilling down. You said when you were appointed you don't want to enlarge the collection at any price, but only if it makes sense. So what would make sense? But that is quite a complex question. You have to know the collection very well in order to explore gaps and make sure that everything ties in with the present, because every collection that was developed at some point in time was contemporary at the time of its beginnings. So what we do need is the continuity. A museum that stops collecting is dead. We have to look into the future and make sure that we follow up on contemporary art production. So I cannot give you any concrete examples now, but it should be in every area of the collection. And of course there are also gaps in historical collections where we miss certain works, desiderata, and also artistic stances of women artists from the 18th or 19th century. And I'm sure that we will have to add to the collection in this respect. But that is a question of the market. It's a question of budget. So it's always good to cooperate with private collectors and art lovers who can support us in that respect. But in a nutshell, when I said that we cannot do it at any price or any old how, we need a strategic conception for that. We cannot just accept whatever is being offered right now, but we have to select the works that are a good fit. Right now, the political situation in Austria is changing. The Republic is your biggest fund provider. So what is your take on the current negotiations for a new government, and what do you feel about the situation? Well, of course, we are all very curious to see what the new government will look like. As someone who is quite new here in Vienna, I have to say that what seems new to me is that Austria sees itself as a cultural nation, and all cultural institutions are not just decoration or nice to have, but are a must-have for the country, and therefore funding them, supporting them financially is more or less self-understood. So that was used to be natural and a matter of course so forth. So I hope that this is not going to change. The remit that we are given by society, namely to discuss topics in a democratic and open manner, and I hope we will be able to live up to that. I wanted to ask about the Matthew Wong exhibition. It's currently on in Zurich at the Kunsthaus. Do you take it on as is, or will there be changes? And second question, how are you going to invite the Viennese population to Albertina? Well, let me start with the latter. When you are appointed as the head of an institution, you look at the numbers and you familiarize yourself with the entire situation, with the staff situation, how many people work there. But of course, you also look into the visitor structures. And I'm quite happy that 40% of our visitors are Austrians, many of them from Vienna. And at peak times, in certain projects and at certain times, it's up to 50% of Austrian visitors. So we are not as dependent on international tourists as some other institutions, which I think is very positive. And it also shows our spirit, this diversity and the many nuanced exhibition. And many of our visitors come back and back and back again. So it's always important to exchange views with local visitors and to pick. So we're not only looking at international audiences, but also pick topics that we know to be attractive for a local audience. And that is a very deliberate decision. And there is many efforts in our education activities that address the local visitors, for instance, programs for families or for people with restricted mobility, which is usually not international tourists. International tourists usually have a very limited time budget for museums. You see our program, we are addressing both international visitors but also the local audience. And we want to maintain this dialogue with the local visitors. You can learn a lot in that respect from the Nordic countries about how to create the atmosphere in a museum so that people feel at home there, even if they have not grown up with works of art or know a lot about art. I hope that answers your question. Oh, Matthew Wong. Yes, right, I forgot that. Yes, the exhibition is conceived in cooperation mainly with Amsterdam. And in cooperation with the main curator there, we have adapted it for Vienna, so there are slight differences from the exhibition as shown in Zurich. It's not absolutely identical, which is due to international loans, because he is an artist that many people want to show, but also because we want to show him in juxtaposition with Van Gogh. So if you saw it in Zurich, I'm looking forward to hearing your comparison. And so I think we have different focal areas, and I'm looking forward to the reactions from our visitors. But it's a very exciting artist. And he was not only inspired by Van Gogh, but also by others, such as Klimt, for instance. So there's a... there were discussions not only about the exhibitions, the new exhibitions, but also about the fact that you are now the new Director General after 25 years of another personality. So what are going to be the differences when it comes to personality? Do you even feel the need to be different from what happened in the last 25 years? Well, I think I have to leave the conclusions to you in that respect. Of course, it's a justified question, and it was one of the things that I really thought long and hard about it. How can you start in a museum that was operating for 25 years in a wonderful way and whose history is very closely linked to my predecessor? So I see it this way. There is lots of great assets in this institution which we want to pick up and develop further. And if you ask, what is the difference? Well, maybe it's a new generation. I'm about 20 years younger. We may give different answers even to identical questions. And I think that all the areas where I have worked in the last 20 years have given me a certain tool set. And I'm quite sure that this is going to be reflected both in the program but also in the big strategic visions. Because it's not only about the exhibition program. I think it's the big lines that may be different to develop this institution into a modern integrational museum where exhibitions are only one part of our efforts, where educational activities, digitalization, research are just as important. And on the basis of my previous professional career, I see that those are questions that are interesting to the audience. So we want to create an Albertina for everybody. We want to address people with very different interests and skill sets. Albertina for everybody, does that mean that you continue Schröder's expansion strategy and want to get even more visitors? Well, the visitor numbers are already at a very high level. And as I just mentioned, the achievements of my predecessor are great when it came to what he has done in developing this into a big modern international museum. What I'm talking about is more a perspective on our visitors that wants to diversify even more and to give more people an inspiration to come here. Whether that is going to be reflected by more visitors, we'll see. Everybody is welcome, of course. I can only say that in Berlin, people were skeptical about my decision to do more thematic exhibitions instead of monographic blockbusters. And actually, between 2017 and the end of last year, so within 7 years, visitor numbers doubled. So that, of course, is not conceivable for Albertina to double the visitor numbers within 5 years, and that's not my objective. But you can see, we can do both. If we want to put a greater focus on research and scientific work, this is not going to disturb the visitors. Exhibitions are also meant to be fun. And if it's not only fun, then that is a plus, an added benefit. So I would like to add the benefits to our exhibition program. And once the visitors have realized that, I'm sure that the house is not going to be less popular. If Schröder was younger, a little younger, he'd probably have developed Albertina internationally and founded an Albertina Venice. So what are your plans there, international plans? Well, international. It's a good thing that you make this difference. I said we have great plans, growth, yes, collections, digitalization. Of course, we want growth, but right now I do not feel the need to found more institutions in other countries. That was maybe the approach pre-corona. Today, the geopolitical situation is quite insecure and uncertain. And whenever we plan for the future, we want to focus on international exchanges, but we will also have to see whether this makes economic sense. So I think right now I'm more reticent, so I don't feel the need for international satellite institutions. Someone said it's a pity that the names of the curators are not given, and I feel it's a pity that the exhibition venues are not being given, because knowing about the venue, I could know whether it's a big or a small exhibition. Well, you will get all of the information as usual on the individual exhibitions. All I wanted to do is give a very compact information. But you will be able to know where it is. It makes a big difference in really not only the house, but also the individual halls. Well, you will get all of that in the descriptions of the individual exhibitions. We have devised this folder just to give you a broad overview. Maybe a last question. When you were appointed, some people thought that you might shrink the program. Will that be the case? Well, obviously, no. Well, if you reword the question, I think it was more about the questions that we just heard, like, would you like to expand internationally? And as I just said, what we do want is filling diversity with life. And we do have 3 venues with large exhibition spaces. That is a great commitment. We also have our collections that dictate our diversity and plurality, and that will stay the same. But something that every museum manager needs to think about is what is to be the intervals, what is to be the duration of an exhibition. With different durations, you get very different structures. And what is the relationship between permanent exhibitions and temporary exhibitions? And all of that is going to be looked at, explored, assessed, and maybe there will be some moderate adjustments made. But I'm not hitting the brakes. I think our program will be as large as it was last year. So with that, many thanks for the many interesting questions. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to our future cooperation. Happy New Year to all of you.